Teams can't hear us.
Hmm.
There you go. It says you're live.
Yep. I'm live on mine.
I don't know why Teams can't hear us.
We can hear you, Josh.
Good. I'm glad I didn't keep talking. All right. Well, I'm having a hard time seeing who is and isn't on. Do we have quorum? I think I see a bunch of people on the bottom. And it is 9:04. So I suppose we'll get going. Mike, are you on today? Sorry. Mike Hughes? I'll give Mike spiel. Technical meeting, BPSOU RDRA progress meeting, just allowing the stakeholders to discuss recent progress over the past month and maybe some upcoming items. So please just open dialogue, make it useful, good use of our time. I have adjusted the agenda a little bit, trying to shorten. I think everybody will notice that. And I hope Pioneer got my note that you're responsible for the safety moment today. So with that.
Perfect, Josh. Thanks. Well done.
Thanks, Mike. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No,
but,
it's good.
Yeah.
My screen went a little crazy, so I couldn't find the unmute. So I got it now, though.
Great. Well, you take my sections of the agenda and I'll be done.
Sure.
So let's kick it over to somebody from Pioneer for a safety moment.
Haley should be.
Hi, Josh, it's Haley.
Hi.
Okay, so for the safety moment this month, June is actually National Safety Month. And so the National Safety Council puts out a couple different topics that they highlight. And so this year they chose safety engagement, roadway safety, risk reduction, and slips, trips, and falls. So I just wanted to touch briefly on kind of what each of those topics mean, as they're something that we all can apply on at work and at home. So to start off, our safety engagement, we look at that as the process, how organizations involve their employees in ongoing efforts to create a safe and healthy work environment. It goes beyond simply complying with regulations and standards. It involves creating a culture of safety that is ingrained into your company's operations. So when employees are actively engaged in safety, they are more likely to follow their procedures. Studies have shown that companies with highly engaged employees experience 70% fewer safety incidents. So one way we can encourage safety engagement is making sure employees don't fall victim into complacency. We can encourage employees to look at their tasks, especially our routine tasks, from a fresh perspective and ask ourselves, if this was your first day, what would you do differently? The next topic they have is our roadway safety. And that really encompasses a range of different precautions and strategies that we can use to reduce accidents, injuries, and fatalities on the roads. And so these measures include obeying traffic rules, using seat belts, avoiding distractions while driving, maintaining safe speeds, and ensuring our proper vehicle maintenance. So a few simple things we can remember to check before we get behind the wheel that can help us maintain roadway safety include adjusting our mirrors to limit any blind spots, adjusting your seat to the proper position, set your phone to do not disturb, put away your phone and any other distractions, and get in the right headspace to drive free of impairment, distraction, and frustration. Our next one is risk reduction, and that involves identifying and assessing risks, then implementing measures to minimize their likelihood and impact. So while eliminating all risks can be impossible, minimizing and reducing them is crucial for safe and efficient operations. Always remember to report hazards as soon as they are noticed. Don't assume that someone else has seen and reported it already, even if it seems obvious to you. It's better to have multiple reports on the same hazard than none. An important part of risk reduction includes recognizing hazards. Spotting hazards is all about anticipation. Start to ask yourself, if I take this action, what might happen? So this can apply to everything that we do, starting with just walking through the work site. And the last topic that I'll talk on is our slips, trips, and falls. And so while each of our jobs are different, for most of us, walking is a part of our workday. Whether it's walking at the work site, taking a walk outside during a break, or getting from one meeting to another, we are on our feet at least part of the day. With all that foot traffic, there is always the potential for a fall. According to Injury Facts, falls to the same level are a leading cause of preventable workplace injuries, causing time away from work. While walking seems like a simple task, it's been a leading cause of workplace injury for many years. We need to watch out for all of the hazards tied to walking, just as we would any other part of our job that poses safety risk. The same way cell phones and other electronics can distract us while we are behind the wheel, these devices can also distract us while we walk. Distractions while walking can include reading a text, memo, or any kind of written material while walking. If you need to read something while on the go, step aside to a safe location out of the way to read and potentially respond before starting to walk again. Rushing too fast, especially when in high traffic areas and around corners, we can slow down and anticipate that other people might come into our path. So to wrap up, those are just a couple of the ways the National Safety Council is highlighting their topics for this year's National Safety Month.
Really just went for it there.
And good reminders for each of us to think about each day at the job. So that's everything that I have. If there's any questions for me, we can, that's everything I have.
Thank you. We're having a little audio difficulty here up at the office.
Just hoping somebody confirm that you can still hear us.
We can hear you on our end.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. We're not seeing the we're not seeing the agenda right now.
I don't know why that is. It's like my computer is.
We have to stand live again, Josh.
Where should be live over here? I think people might see my scroller moving around, but all the text has disappeared from that email.
It's weird.
Let me see. You go to.
Stop sharing it, maybe.
Oh, there's
Oh,
that.
something's happening now. Yeah, there we go.
You can see it.
Let's see here. Good evening. Here's the agenda email. How about now? Can you see the agenda
Yeah.
again?
Yep,
Okay.
it's looking great over here.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, Haley. Sorry, we had a couple glitches here in the office, but sounds like it went well for what we didn't hear. We'll move quickly on to Lexington Wetlands. Cora, Granny, please interject if I miss anything. We did do some initial weed management down there, some chemical application, meant for application adjacent to wetlands. I went down there and saw some good success early. It looks like we got a couple of green patches, but we'll continue to implement that as we progress with the work. The team touched up the trails again after we had the weed crew in there and kind of hit the edges a little bit and softened the shoulders. So that was touched up. And this week, I believe we're pushing towards beginning installation of the sewer kit, or the discharge from the plumbed restroom, and continue to progress and work our way out of sight. Any other items of note down there? Randy or Court?
Yeah, Josh, I think you hit it. I mean, the water connection and for the water is also going to be installed hopefully this week as well.
Great. That'll get us on the way moving vertical, so that'll be fun to see. Let's roll into Casey Street. Forward, Randy.
Yeah, so the main thing there, we've submitted the ticket now to Union Pacific Railroad and are really waiting on their response. So as we understand, the first step is you have to it has to be assigned to a real estate person, and that has not occurred. And so as soon as that does, then we can engage with them and answer any questions and hopefully get that permanent easement really for Butte Superfund, for the system into the future. And so once we have that, then again, everything's ready. The group has looked at materials and all of that. And so it's probably just 3 to 4 weeks once we, kind of, have that clear direction on the, when will be approved by Union Pacific Railroad. So that's the main outstanding item.
Okay, it sounds like it's positive though, and you got direct communications with an individual and not a chat bot or something.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, that's good. All right. Well, let's stay in touch and see when we need to provide some updates or flyers to the folks down there when we know that work's imminent.
Yep, will do.
Okay. Girl Gulch, Emma's been out for a week and having fun, cool times on the river, but maybe we can just dive into this and see how we're doing with any remaining outstanding issues on the comments. We did have a meeting to discuss remaining comments in the conditional approval letter. I think maybe there was one item that you're going to get back to us on.
Yeah, I think so. The last we left off, we were talking about the executive or the execution plan, and I think it would still be really beneficial if we could just see an outline of the like table of contents for that plan, and then we can talk again about what it looks like. So if you all are able to share that table of contents, that would be really beneficial for us, and then we can set up a call to talk about the contents of it as it relates to the tech specs.
Yeah, I think what we can do anything we can do to move that project forward and get our crews to the field. McKinsey, I don't know if Eric's able to join. Eric, you need to go back to one of McKinsey's previous emails that said, do not share, do not forward this invite, which would have preceded the most recent invitation for McKinsey. Yeah, I think we're getting to a good place internally as well as far as preparedness to mobilize. We're still working on some of those internal submittals, making sure we have all the contractual pieces in place between our CMGC and the subcontractors, and then CMGC to align Richfield. So continue to be optimistic that we can get out in the field, but I think the sooner the better that we can resolve any remaining questions or comments. Right. I think what I have in my folder right now from the Water and Current team is kind of a ready to hit submit kind of package. So with replacement packages effectively. So let's look at our calendars after this and see what we can do.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Any other updates from the Grove Gulch team, starting with Water and Current? Any items of note other than ready to kind of hit send?
Yeah, nothing else from me, Josh. I think you covered it.
Okay. And I know the construction team's working on those pre-mob submittals and starting to plan out materials, ordering and receipt and staging and things like that. So should be getting close.
Yep.
Moving on to the repository, I guess I'll take the overall stuff and we'll circle back to Ramsey Accord for an update on additional evaluations going out there for geotechnical investigation. I've been working the materials management plan with the team over the past week or two, really refining the language, I think, to a place where it needs to be and hitting all the high points. Even items that Montana Resources has contributed to the plan to make sure we're discussing things in that plan that may be impactful to them if the Berkeley pit were to be selected as a repository. We've been focusing, when we say materials, everybody thinks about soils, but there will also be some component of water that's mixed into the slurry line if it's selected. So we have to address that as a material too. Effectively, we're taking the same approach as soils. What the metals look like, and once it's at the Berkeley pit within BPSOU, then it's, the objective is that it just simply becomes managed by the BPSOU remedy, similar to surface water, stormwater, and sediments that currently report from the Butte into the BPSOU site. So I guess that's where we're at there. Waste acceptance criteria, really taking a simplistic approach to this, kind of utilizing the Butte Mine Waste Repository acceptance criteria as our basis and trying to make it as uncomplicated as possible, I guess. it's not a hazardous waste, that's a great start in our perspective. And then we focus on, of course, historic mine waste, and then how do you manage municipal waste and debris, consistent with Butte mine waste repository requirements, and knowing that we've got a large site that has significant volume of municipal waste and debris. So good progress there. Those are two key components that I think need to go hand in hand with advancement of the repository siting study. So looking forward to pushing on both those fronts. Ramsey, I'm not sure you're on, but I know Cord's on. If Jacob's team member could give an update on the geotechnical investigation activities going on up and around.
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. Yeah, thanks, Josh. So the we completed the first boring, and so the first boring BH2402 was encountered bedrock, I believe, around 133 feet below ground surface, and cored that to total depth of 153 feet. They've moved now and are at 160 feet at 01 boring location, and that one they think they have encountered bedrock, so they're switching over to coring here at 160 feet. It's a little higher in elevation, so the depth difference is not unexpected given the higher elevation of that location. So making good progress. I believe they finished clearing locations on MR yesterday. And yeah, so kind of a quick update.
Thank you. And just for everybody's awareness, those drilling locations are at Kelly Mine Area E. Isn't that right, Cord? So
that's right. Yep.
Just across the road. Just across the road, or just west of the Butte Mine Waste Repository. Okay, Buffalo Gulch, and maybe before we go to the Woodland Current team, start with some items from Atlantic Richfield. Beneficial reuse of materials is a key component to successful delivery of remedies, not only in Butte, but also, across the United States for circular remedies. In SBCA, the Silver Creek corridor, however, we've observed that retaining on-site materials that exceed any single metal analyte of tables 2 and 3 of the BPSOU is really complicating our designs, and I believe would adversely impact construction efficiency. So right now we're updating remaining designs, specifically Buffalo Gulch and Diggins East, to reflect removal of on-site material that fails any single metal analyte material suitability criteria of BPSOU tables 2 and 3. So I guess in effect, that'll result in simpler designs for the agency's review, simpler designs for us to complete, and less complex grading plans, and certainly more simple materials management protocols once that excavation material is excavated and what its fate is versus stockpiling on site, sampling it, and then replacing it per additional agency guidance. So look forward to pushing these projects to the starting line and beginning work at Grove Gulch very soon, and turning around Buffalo Gulch 95% for short term. So with that, I think we can dive into more specific updates on Buffalo Gulch. For the current team.
You bet. Thanks, Josh. This is Emily. So we are generally progressing our 95%. We're beginning the AR review process. So we've started to provide Atlantic Richfield with some of the deliverables as those are ready for their review. In the last month, we got back our last round of treatability data from PACE for the phase 2 enhanced biotreatability study. So that data has been added to the DSR. So we're getting the hydrocarbon DSR wrapped up, and the evaluation of that data and recommendations for how hydrocarbon impacted soils at Buffalo Gulch can or should be treated for disposal. Those would be included in the materials management plan, and ultimately are dependent on the acceptance criteria of the selected repository. So kind of a moving target, but we did get that data back and are working on the evaluation. Other data we received this year include the additional borehole, kind of there in the middle west of WL12. So that was a deeper borehole down to 15 feet. We sent those samples in for ICP analysis and have updated the EVS model with all ICP available data. So that includes this 2024 borehole, 2019 soil samples, and the QC samples from 2018. We also do include our XRF data from 2018 in that EVS model. And as Josh mentioned, we've looked at both soils that fail the waste identification criteria and soils that don't meet the criteria B metals requirements of the FreeSOU. So all of that has gone into updating our excavation volumes and ultimately import volumes for reconstruction. We are waiting on some final recommendations from the 2024 geotechnical investigation. Those recommendations could impact a few areas of design. So we are getting to a spot with our design where we are prepared to respond efficiently to those recommendations and turn around a 95% pre-final design to Atlantic Richfield and ultimately to the EPA as soon as possible. But we'll just have to respond to those when they're made available.
Thanks, Emily. Any questions for Emily and team on Buffalo Gulch? I'll just say, even though we're really trying to get the 95% out to the agencies, we've got to tie up these last few items so we don't have anything lagging between 95 and 100. So our intent is to be complete, you know, with maybe small insignificant exceptions, and if there are exceptions, we'll let you guys know when we submit it. There's nothing on Buffalo Gulch from anybody. We'll move on to Diggins East.
Yeah, this is Joe. We're advancing our Diggins East design. We're looking at our diversion structure. We're incorporating a capillary break. We're currently doing a no-rise evaluation, incorporating some circulation bogs, advancing the vertical structures for the inlet use design features, getting our electrical and instrumentation and control elements in line, looking at our drainage, stormwater drainage expression from Marcia Street, working to advance our water line connection to the Silver Lake water line, refining the recirculation system, and taking every opportunity we can to refine our constructability. We're also hoping to have a 95% to the agencies by mid-September, and that's about it at this point.
Thanks, Joe. You did say one thing that kind of key to conversation that we're intending to have on kind of basin-wide no-rise evaluations, or not basin-wide, you know, corridor project-wide area no-rise evaluations. So I don't know if you want me to take the torch on that and maybe send out a poll to Julie Crane, you and team members.
Yeah, I had reached out to Julia not last week, but the week before to see who all she wanted involved in that conversation, and hadn't heard back yet. So if you want to send out a poll with just the folks that have been involved with the Grove Gulch no rise, I think that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that. So I'll get Woodard and Current team on there for BG, Pioneer team on there for Diggins East / Northside Tailings. Oh, I don't know, Northside Tailings is impactful. And we'll invite everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody that we're used to talking to. Okay.
Sounds good. Sean, are we gonna loop BRW into that, or is it gonna be?
You just constructed a brand new floodplain. I don't know why you have a problem.
Second the floodplain.
That's what I like Karen. Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole different piece to BRW versus just constructing a remedy component in the floodway versus reconstructing the entire floodway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, Karen. Any questions for Joe? Team on Diggins East? Things are progressing really well. Anything on agency review?
Yeah,
60?
we're moving along, I think, well with the review. I guess question on that discussion of on-site material, is that with the design that we have in hand now, the use of it is included, the 60%?
We try to leave it very vague intentionally. And I can't remember the exact language in places, but we try to leave it as loose as we could.
Okay.
Without spilling the beans.
So the model, that is going to be updated with this, without the inclusion of that material.
Yeah, you'll see some simplification.
Okay.
That's what'll result in.
I guess when would we anticipate, like, are you anticipating to resubmit that with?
Not for 60%,
Okay,
no.
I don't think you'll find much conflict with
Right.
Diggins East with this change. And I think the model's gonna be the same. I don't think you're gonna have much of a difference. It was all lumped together in that big historic fill
Mhm.
brown hatch in the drawings.
Mhm.
And it wasn't that specific of how much could be potential reuse or not.
I think it deferred to like the materials management plan and CM QAP or something for,
Yeah,
we kind of just punted out of the design.
Okay.
What was our intent for the time being?
you might be able to find some minor spots that maybe got missed, but I mean, from a global perspective, it could just be a simple comment saying you recognize that this has changed and you know that we're going to change in 5.
Okay, so I guess that was where, so the change we would see, it would not be your intent to resubmit 60%, it would just be to make any changes at the 95%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we tried, yeah, like Rich said, the D&C services were pretty simple and clean to begin with. You know, I don't expect much change, with the exception of more direct language and the call outs and the notes and things like that. It would really be more specific to the standard we're going to achieve now in the Buffalo Gulch and Diggins project sites.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, we're cruising along with review still, and definitely reach out if there's further questions or want to talk more about anything that we're seeing, but
Great,
I think it's looking good from what we've seen so far, so.
appreciate it, thank you.
A
All right.
quick question from Ian.
Ian?
Is these proposed changes in material management, is the materials management plan going to be issued as a standalone, or are we waiting for the 95% to see that?
Materials management plan will be issued as standalone, covering all the Richfield projects within the social career conservation area, with the exception of Grove Gulch. Grove Gulch is already sailed. And right now, I need to speak to Emma and Eric and Daryl a little bit about the cart and the horse, you know, which comes first, materials management plan or the repository site study, or vice versa, or do they kind of come out together in a way? Because the materials management plan by design has to make a lot of assumptions on where the material goes. So maybe we can make it more general for what's called 60% submittal of the materials management plan, to where it's not overly specific until we conclude the repository science study, or consider our strategy altogether. So yeah, it'll be in the materials management plan, and it's meant to cover all Atlantic Richfield projects in.
Okay. But we will see that before the 95% for these projects, right?
Most likely for Buffalo Gulch, you'll see the materials management plan before Buffalo Gulch. I certainly hope so.
Okay, I understand. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to Northside Tailings. Rainier?
This is Troy with Pioneer. So currently we're working on the 60% design. Progressing through excavation and the site grading, as well as the hydraulic controls, and then inland use items in the areas that we have data. I guess we're hopeful that at some point we're going to get access to that northwest corner and we can get some more investigation completed this year, and hopefully roll that into this 60%.
Thanks, Troy. And maybe just for awareness, we're working on property access with UP. The access agreement that I saw really wasn't in Atlantic Richfield's best interest. Had a lot of confidentiality requirements, and of course, we know that this work is not confidential in nature when we're submitting public documents to the agency's review. So we need to find a way or alternate mechanism to progress acquisition of that or access to that portion of Northside Tailings owned by UP. Unfortunately, it continues to impact completion of pre-design investigation activities at Northside Tailings, and it's kind of waiting to resolve. So yeah, Troy's always been in limbo. Andy for Troy trying to complete that work, and really can't advance to 60% until we get that data. So, thanks, Troy. Any questions on Northside? All right, Troy. BPSOU pump station.
Yeah, as far as the BPSOU pump station, we're in the preliminary stages of just evaluating options and real general items and moving towards the 30% submittal at the end of the year. I expect that to pick up more a little bit later this fall. Get that submittal out.
Thanks, Troy. And just for everybody's reminder awareness, the BPSOU pump station is an ongoing remedial element scope of work for groundwater remedy optimization. We're upgrading the system kind of in advance of full evaluation of the effectiveness and function of the existing groundwater remedy. We know we're taking on more water as a result of the hydraulic control addition at Blacktail Creek. So it just makes sense for us to implement upgrades and provide a more safe and accessible system for our operators. So we're moving that design forward as a component of groundwater remedy optimization. Peat reduction works, Karen.
Yeah, this is Karen with Pioneer. As far as the phase 2 demolition planning goes, we're working on updating that phase 2 demo packet to include the removal of that western portion of the slag wall that was demoed during the phase 1. So incorporating that, and then the other elements that are in is the slag nose area off Montana Street, the stack foundation, and then some other furnace infrastructure. So we're working on that, hoping to have something to start Atlantic Richfield's internal review early July. That will include also a floodplain memo that looks at any impacts to the floodplain, since it's mapped over VRW right now. As far as a general update goes, we're progressing the 60% as much as we can, kind of balancing some resources, but incorporating changes to the end land use right now. And then we're trying to wrap up our PDI evaluation report, incorporating the biotreatability study that we got the results on, and the organic pollutant surface water sampling that was done last fall and into winter. Went along.
Thanks, Karen. Any questions for Karen? Your reduction works. Need additional discussion? Okay. Groundwater remedy optimization. Brent is attempting to join by phone. So Brent, are you on?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We gotcha.
All right, well, good. All right, well, groundwater remedy optimization. So as one of the components of the CD, it discusses that AR is required to evaluate impacts of implementation of technical elements on operation effectiveness and reliability of the system. And that's how we've incorporated the stress test. So we want to ensure that BTL is effective at treating the influent flows that are currently and the future expected flows. And so the purpose there is to stress the BTL to determine that maximum capacity. So that stress test was submitted for review to the EPA last Monday on 6/17, and I know we had a scrum last month just talking about the approach, which it hasn't changed. It's a similar approach. I think some of the flows have changed slightly, but for the most part, it's very similar to what was presented. We are looking for an expedited turn on the review if possible. As soon as possible, but mid to end of July for that. So I guess is there any? Do we think there's any hurdles associated with getting a review expedited for that work plan in QAP?
Brent, since I was out this is Emma at EPA. Since I was out last week, I haven't been able to check back in with my team yet on it. So I don't have an answer for you right now, but I will get back to you and let you know if we have any issues with that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions just specific to the stress test itself?
I think we're intending to start if we get approval.
Right.
Brent, correct me if I'm wrong. We're intending to start kind of set up in late August, and then conduct the test beginning early October. Is that right?
So we're going to initiate the test set up in August, and then it'll be completed in October.
Completed in October. Okay.
Yep.
And
it'll be three 2-week phases where we're increasing the flow for each 2-week period to be able to test and monitor as we go through those phases. So we have the ability to stop at any phase if we see conditions that require stop work.
And I guess the reason we're pushing on it for people on the phone's awareness is that this is our last true, kind of season construction year without heavy construction activities being implemented at one of the larger project sites. So I just think it would be too much to manage stress test plus construction activities at Buffalo Gulch, for example, in the same period. So hopefully we're able to get it done in advance of setting in on the large project construction, and if not, we'll just defer it until after implementation of the freestyle projects.
Brett, on that, the words on the email that you sent over, the link that you included for the QAP and the PDI work plan, it didn't have a Word version of the QAP crosswalk. So if you could send over a Word version of that, that would be great, because that's what we'll need for our review.
Okay. I can send over a Word version.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I think the next one is infiltration evaluation and leak detection. And so we've been coordinating with Atlantic Richfield on a corridor-wide project infiltration leak detection plan. And so we've went through a couple of iterations, and I think we're close to having a final document. My anticipation is that we'll submit that infiltration evaluation and leak detection plan back to Atlantic Richfield for hopefully what is the final review. That plan, again, it's very similar to what we presented in our previous scrum. It includes a water balance along with a monitoring component to evaluate potential leak detection. So that we're hoping to get to the EPA's hands here pretty soon.
Thanks, Brent. Any questions on those two items for briefly going on hydraulic control? Take it away, Brent.
Okay. BTC hydraulic control. So the two ongoing activities are response to the PDI ER. We received comments back, I believe, early February. I know it's been a few months. Took a little while to incorporate the comments back into the site-wide groundwater model. I believe we're at the final stretches of having the site-wide groundwater model recalibrated. I know there was I think they changed the calibration method, and they had to use some software that required, like 2 weeks of calculations per run or analysis. So we're working through that. We'd like to have the PDI ER and also the 30% Blacktail Creek hydraulic control design, submitted in the month of July. So we're pushing hard on that to try to get that to everyone for review. Any questions on Black Trail Creek or the PDI ER? Okay. Just one note, as we resubmit the PDI ER, that has a large component of the site-wide groundwater model. And, as we progress through a lot of these other tasks with the, groundwater remedy optimization or, the long-term groundwater management plan, there's a lot of contributing factors that will need to be evaluated with that site-wide groundwater model. So just being important that we, once that's resubmitted, we'll probably follow up with another scrum to review the changes. Currently we're not seeing a lot of changes from what we presented last time as far as how it's simulating groundwater. But I think the important thing is that we get alignment with all parties and we move forward so we can start using this without question. So.
Thanks, Brent. Appreciate it. Yeah, the model is really the foundation of a lot of what we're doing, so we need to get it locked in. Look forward to see, scheduling that scrum too. Any questions for Brent? All right. So Berkeley Conservation Area Program plans. Tim's not here. So I'll attempt to do this with support from Rich and Andy. Technical specs, program-wide specs. There might actually be an ongoing meeting right now with some of the technical team members assembling that package. Utilizing specs from Grove Gulch, Buckle Gulch is the basis for that, and developing it out as necessary for application of remaining projects. Rich, Andy, any additional points on tech specs?
60% set of that is with the agency's review, but we're progressing with the 95. I think the plan on the schedule right now is those 95 specs we would send in mid-August, early August, mid-August. So if we don't see comments by then, we'll probably just send them. I think as Josh said, what we gave you on the 60% was more or less the foundation, and now we're diligently working with all the design teams to gain alignment and make sure that we've got consistency across the program. That's really the focus of what we're doing in the 60 and 95.
Thanks. Any questions on tech specs? Everybody loves tech specs. Maybe we'll go over Karen with CMQAP. Karen's been taking the torch on development of the construction quality assurance plan, construction monitoring quality assurance program plan. Karen, update. I know you've been working on some tables.
Yeah, working on tables. Both of those documents are progressing. The plan is they'll be, as far as submittals, similar to a mid-August date with the specs, mainly because the CQAP relies quite a bit on the tech specs. They mirror each other, and CMQAP relies on the CQAP. So we're working on those and hoping for a mid-August submittal to agencies.
Everything right now is sitting in a pretty good spot on those. It would just be filling in some things I can't talk about the specs. Gotcha.
Any questions for Karen on either of those two documents, CQAPs and CQAP? Okay. Materials management plan, I kind of discussed it earlier. It's one of the priority tasks right now, along with repository science study. Advance all projects. You know, we need the repository to have a place to go. We need the materials management plan to tell us, you know, what materials are going there and where and what's acceptable and not. So hand in hand, trying to advance those as quickly as we can. O&M plan. I know Brent's on. You know, we had a kind of a coordination meeting. I think it was last week. Got all the engineers in a room and probably had, I don't know, about 8 or 9 too many chefs in the kitchen room for that meeting. But, you know, we got a lot of good feedback from the design teams and Stantec's taking that feedback and trying to integrate it in to you know, an outline or table of contents of what that O&M plan could look like. And really it's one part remedy, one part in land use, based on what's being delivered down in the corridor project area. So I always rely on things we've done in the past. So we're working with Andy pretty significantly to rely on the framework that was provided for the Old Works Golf Course. It's remedy plus in land use, if you will. And also I'm going to try to integrate some BTL kind of components in it. You know, since we have operating lagoons down there, we'll have operating stormwater ponds here. I guess that's a structure on. So look forward to, you know, continuing to advance that and sharing maybe the structure of the outline with the agencies soon and continue to discuss it, make sure, you know, we're in alignment as we press that plan forward to, you know, really have it finalized after an O&F period. So we've got quite a bit of time on that one. Brent, any additions on the O&M plan?
No, I think you covered it, Josh.
General theme, like with everything else, is we're just looking for consistency across each one of the sites, so then pulling into that overarching.
Any questions on any of the program plans before we move on? Up Mountain, Emily.
All right. We are working on the DSR. We've got our issues resolved with PACE for now. And we're looking at delivering to Atlantic Richfield towards the end of July. So I think that'll be a change in the schedule, delivering to the EPA like mid-August. So we were originally looking at July to the EPA, so just a couple week delay there. We are currently getting through review of DQAs and getting the review through Woodard and Curran's QAO. And then last week we completed the order 2 sampling and have been checking for seeps and discharge from the capillary break post-storm.
Any
Um,
observed seeps or discharges?
no, still no observed seeps, like down at the private lots down there at the toe of the repository embankment, but we do, observe discharge from the capillary break post-storm, but that's to be expected. Means it's working.
Yep. Thanks, Emily. So we get the DSR submitted and then we start moving towards conceptual site model, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We have been progressing that in tandem, beginning, different evaluations, water balances, trying to dig up some historic boring logs from a couple of those wells. We have yet to have luck with finding those, but we'll keep looking. So yeah, I would expect like maybe towards the end of this year for a draft of that conceptual site model update. But we'll get through this DSR and then turn our focus to that.
Sounds good. Maybe we should get something on the calendar with the agencies to discuss what that conceptual site model might look like, after we get this DSR submitted.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, maybe look towards like September timeframe.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and thanks everyone.
Emily, any questions for Emily? Okay, moving on to ETC riparian actions. Logan or Daryl, any
Yeah,
updates?
this is Daryl. Logan apologizes he can't be here today, but he did provide me some updates, which I will present here. So their remedial design work plan was conditionally approved by EPA, and the comments will be addressed in the 30% design. And then the pre-design investigation evaluation report is in NRD review right now. And we hope to submit that to EPA by the end of July. And then they are doing a task order right now, drafting one to do a data gap study for the design.
Daryl, any questions for Daryl? Blacktop Creek riparian actions? All right, moving on to NRD activities. Jim, are you on?
I am Josh. Yeah, Jim Ford, RD. Nothing much to update. I mean, we're still moving forward with that project that we've got going on Blacktail Creek, rerouting the creek, take irrigation pond offline, of course, upstream all these actions.
Jim?
We're
Sorry,
still
but
planning on that going this winter. It's a winter project, and just trying to get. We've got a multitude of access agreements. A lot of the same typical thing, Josh, you're dealing with getting alive. We've got the golf course. We've got a developer. We've got Butte Silverboat. So building a fish ramp up and over sewer line upstream, just slightly upstream the boundary.
Jim, we can barely hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was having problems with volume too. Can you hear me any better?
It's pretty quiet.
Maybe I'll take a quick run at what I think I heard that I think Jim said that the NRD is still working on implementation of the Blacktail Creek project up through the golf course, that it includes installation of some fish passages or fish barriers. And sounded like maybe working on an access agreement with the country club. But kind of all like pieced out of that, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm sorry. I'm muddled here, but yeah, that's correct. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Jim. I think we'll avoid going questions to Jim because we can't hear him, but appreciate it. On to community engagement activities. I think I presented a CTEC last week or the week before. Just kind of a general RDRA progress update and kind of discuss the materials management plan in similar fashion. What I did at the Council of Commissioners prior to that. If anybody else has just completed community engagement activities or upcoming community engagement activities, Emma, team, anything planned on the horizon?
Not that we have anything on the calendar yet. I think we're looking at having a community discussion potentially at some point in July, but that's kind of a moving target for us. So when we have actual dates that we're considering, we'll let people know and see, make sure it works for all the agencies and groups.
And Josh, with construction, all we have is probably the immediate, you know, kind of neighbors and stuff that we would engage with prior to Grove Gulch or water main, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Cord. Okay, so it doesn't sound like anything's on the immediate horizon as far as community-wide discussion or meetings or anything, so keep everybody posted if something does arise. Any other items on community engagement? Maybe we're missing. Okay. Well, with that, I think we'll move to roundtable. Maybe I'll start this time. Again, we're planning to remove materials from the project sites that fail the suitability criteria of tables 2 and 3 from the Buffalo Gulch and Diggins East project sites. This is a reminder that we hadn't identified any at Northside Tailings, I don't believe, nor at the reduction works. There are materials in the project areas, particularly the Diggins East, that we believe pass all those criteria. So there will be on-site reuse materials that we propose to reuse on site, and the sampling of those and confirmation would be completed according to the, I believe, the CMQAP, to make sure the suitability criteria are met for those metals. So hopefully there's a little bit there that we can still use to pass all the metals criteria tables 2 and 3. There'll be a communication coming out from Atlantic Richfield to follow up on what we discussed today. So I guess our agency partners should watch their inboxes for that. Maybe we'll go over to Emma.
Have many updates. I'm catching up from being out last week, so I think there's some meetings that we were talking about setting up. So we'll follow up on making sure I'm not missing anything or haven't let anything drop with being out. But no, I don't think there's really anything else. Our team's chugging along on the Diggins East and tech spec reviews, and we're hoping to be able to meet those timelines that you guys set out, and hoping that we can have further discussions on Grove Gulch to get that to construction. And then, yeah, I don't think anything else. It's cruising, busy summer for all of us.
Missed one item. I took a note here. Get out there for awareness. And Scott, maybe you can help me out with this. We've updated the swim model for the corridor projects. And I think it'd be great for us to have a meeting to present those updates prior to submittal of the PG 95%.
Okay.
So maybe watch out for a poll from Scott or Emily or myself to try to get that being incorporated prior to submittal of the 95%.
For Buffalo Gulch, is that what you said?
Yeah, but it applies to also extended corridor swim model.
Okay.
Buffalo Gulch, Diggins East, Northside Tailings. Daryl?
Nothing really to report. Just that yesterday we had a great opportunity. We got a tour by Montana Resources of their facility. And so it's good to put that all in perspective of where where things are and how those might impact our priority soils project. So it was a good tour.
Thanks, Daryl. Eric, were you able to join as a participant?
I was, Josh. Thank you. all I really have is it's great news in regards to the on-site materials. So thank you very much for the update.
Thanks, Eric. Jim, I don't know if your audio's working better. Any additions, Jim?
No, sorry about my whatever is going on with my mic. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Josh.
That was much better. Thank you. Okay. I think that's all we had today. So watch out for your invites from McKinsey and meeting notifications. Looks like we'll talk to everybody towards the end of July. Thanks everybody for joining. Talk soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.